Politics 101. We are here with our third show. So exciting times for us. And today's topic is to discuss when women get involved in politics, how everyone wins, especially women getting involved. We definitely win. So today we have a guest here from the League of Women's Voters. Lisa is going to talk about how the institution helps out with community action and making the playing ground better for everyone. So women definitely getting involved in politics is a win-win for everyone in this nation. All righty, let's get started. All right, you can go ahead and have a seat. So thank you so much for coming out this morning. And hope you found it, the drive here okay and everything?
Very easy, very easy.
So just kind of explain the League of Women's Voters and what their mission and goals are for the community.
Sure. So the League of Women Voters is a national organization whose mission is to promote government engagement,
Okay.
public policy issues,
Okay.
advocacy, and really educating the public about the importance of these issues,
Okay.
the elements of an issue, and why they are important to the public and how it impacts them. We
Okay.
are nonpartisan.
Okay,
So
great.
we do not endorse candidates or parties.
Okay.
And so I think that's very important, especially, as we look at, our current
Event,
political
yes,
climate.
yes.
That we do have some organizations that
Have
tend-
chosen sides.
That's right. And,
Okay.
and who have not, and the
Okay.
League is one of them.
Okay, so I understand that your mission and goal is looking at policies.
Mm-hmm.
So you're taking a stance of not having a political process with it, but engaging in politics in order to promote policies that do what for the community?
So this could be local issues. We understand what's going on with the exploration about Fair Park and what the future
Yes.
of Fair Park is going
Yes.
to be. So we have unit meetings. And
Okay.
so those are meetings that are regularly scheduled that explore local and national issues that
Okay.
impact our community.
Are those open to the public?
They are not. So those
Okay.
are internal meetings. But then
Okay.
we also have meetings where we do invite the public to attend.
Okay.
So, for instance, we have a meeting that's coming up, and it's actually a candidate forum for
Okay.
the local sheriff county race.
Okay.
And so that is for the public, and that is in
Yeah, I was gonna say
October.
October?
It's October the 8th, I believe. So it's the
Ah.
October the 8th at 2
Okay.
p.m.
Okay.
at the Midway Hills Christian Church
Okay.
off of Midway Road.
Mm-hmm.
And we certainly invite you, the public,
Yes,
to come out
yes.
because we will have all of the candidates in that race out.
Okay.
And so
So, is there a libertarian that's also
There
running in?
is.
Okay,
There
okay.
is.
And I think a lot of people they're not aware
Mm-hmm.
that there's a third party that is very involved in this election process that's coming up in November. So I know there is a libertarian running for precinct 3 for county commissioner, sheriff, and I think a couple of other judge positions, there are some libertarians. So it's very important that institutions like this that are putting on forums for the public, that you really get out there and take the opportunity to see what these candidates have to have, because there's nothing more daunting, I think, because I've looked at your education materials on, voting, and I've also looked at them for running a candidate forum and making sure that the playing field is level, that they're nonpartisan, that you address questions for both or all parties involved. But not being involved prior to becoming a precinct chair and doing coffee and politics, I mean, you could go in the booth and you just see names. And basically, people are voting name recognition based on some yard sign that they've seen
True.
or a commercial.
That's true.
So what do you do to help engage people with educating themselves on the process?
So one of the things that the League prides itself on is our
Yes.
voter guide.
Okay.
And so our voter guide is comprehensive. Of course, we do not endorse, but it is educational material for
Okay.
the public.
Okay.
So it includes all of the parties who respond.
Okay.
So the candidates have to respond, obviously, to the guide. But for those who have, they are included, and it's educational on, you know, the level of government they're running for, you know, platforms, their party, you know, all of that things, so the public at least understands a
What
little bit
they're standing
more
for.
about what they're for, and also
Okay.
on issues as well, not just candidates.
Okay, okay, great.
And, you know, you used to see, when I, you know, was coming along in college, my father was very, very involved in the political process. And so he would have me kind of stand out and, you know, they would do the sample ballots.
Yes.
You know, you don't really see people doing that as much anymore. But
So why do you think that's so?
well, you know, I think it goes back to what we're talking about, just the nature of making sure, you know, things are not driven politically.
Okay.
But, you know, any sort of material I think a voter has, and it's not of political nature, but can still educate them, just so they have the background before they go in to make such
Right.
an important decision.
Right.
We're talking about bonds and
Yes.
roads and
Tax ratification election.
property
Yes.
taxes, all those things. I mean,
Yes.
it's really, really important to kind of give them a sample of what it is they're going in to vote for, because this is really important decisions that we're making.
Local politics can, people can kind of gloss it over and think that, oh, well, it's just the local election, it's no big deal. It's just a judge that I'm putting in, it's just a tax assessor, it's just the sheriff.
Yep.
And that doesn't necessarily impact me. So I want to take us back kind of with the history of the league and why the league formed itself. Because, you know, women and other minorities had to fight for their right to participate in the political process. So can you give us some history?
Very true. I mean, we know that the 19th Amendment allowed women the
Yes.
right to vote, but there was so much more before that women had to do. We often forget, because we know what this country's history is with the civil rights, but many people don't realize how women had to fight as well.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, and that, you know, we were, and to a certain extent still considered a minority.
Yes, we are.
And so, you know, the league was created on this whole basis.
Okay.
And so, you know, I think it's really important, especially now, you know, with you know, the candidates we have, and the one candidate we have, to see the possibility of a woman actually being
Yes.
possibly voted in as
Yes.
president. I mean,
Yes.
this is a first, this is a big thing, and so I think we'll actually be able to draw from the history of the league and why it was founded many, many years ago.
Okay, so what prompted the league to form then?
So this,
This right here,
not
getting,
being able to have the right to vote, women
Okay.
could not vote. And so the league was founded upon that. Of course, we know of Susan B. Anthony.
Yes.
And the suffragist movement.
yes,
Yeah, I know recently there was a huge monument to them that was given in Washington to acknowledge that. And I just don't think there's been enough to really acknowledge just what those women did.
well, you
then.
know, as a woman, mother, sister, aunt, daughter, all the hats that we wear, we do have a job that can go very underappreciated.
Yes.
And I just wonder, you know, we hold everyone else up with all the hats that we wear. And to see in my lifetime, because my grandmother was still alive when we watched Barack Obama be elected as the first Black president. And she said never in my time did she ever think that she was going to see that. And for me, in my lifetime, to see a Black male and then a female running and get nominated, and possibly come November 8th, we could possibly see the first female president. That is like unheard of.
Well, and I think it's a great opening to another big element of the league, and especially the Dallas
Okay.
League, as far as the importance of diversity, not just as far as race, but with our board, our membership, there's been a real embracing of, you know, different age groups, and
Okay.
different ethnic and nationalities, different geographic areas that the members live in, and
Okay.
a real big push to make sure that it is very inclusive.
So you bring up a good point with diversity, and a lot of times people think of diversity strictly on the inclusion of racial minorities or ethnic minorities. And when I think of diversity, I'm thinking, your background. What are you bringing? Am I an
Yes.
attorney?
Yes.
Do I work in IT? My trade was nutrition. So, I'm gonna look at everything from a healthcare perspective.
Yes.
And bringing that level of diversity to a group where you're sitting down and hashing out ideas and looking at policies and seeing how those things can impact, everybody's lives. And I know that the league is heavily involved in education. Could you talk about the league's role with pushing out education policies and?
Well, I think it goes back to what I was saying about the local issues. The league has been a very, very big driver of the local issues with education.
Any specific?
Well, with the last big push, the league was involved with that on the referendum.
Oh, yes, and I'm drawing a blank too. Oh, gosh. My focus has been so on early childhood and
yes,
teacher pay. Yes.
Absolutely. So in fact, but nothing nonpartisan. I mean, nothing partisan, but just making sure that people are aware and educated about the issues.
Okay.
And so I think that as we continue to look at the speaker was here this week and talked about some of the big issues that the state is going to have to take up in the next legislative session. And of course, that is, public education. He said is going to be a priority.
Yes.
CPS and Child Protective Services and foster care. All of these things are now making a big impact, and so we will kind of now shift and see what the state will make a priority, because you're now seeing we've got a big revenue. We've got $1 billion short on revenue because of what's going on in Houston with the oil and gas industry.
Yes.
And so I think we will see the league and hopefully others take a big interest in shifting and how this is going to impact Dallas and how it's going to impact the state.
Right. I know with the recent election for many of the school districts around Dallas have voted yes for the tax ratification. And there has been a discussion that Austin will start limiting the ISDs to be able to ask for monies through those types of elections. So, there could be a possible missed opportunity for local decisions to be made by the people. Because that was, part of the, I don't want to say the struggle with the recent DISD decision, but it was kind of like, well, let the people decide. And part of the reason why I brought this forum to light was not a lot of people really understood what was going on. So I think it's very important that people, start taking a step to get engaged and finding out what information is out there. So what else is going to be happening potentially with public education? I mean, is that going to trickle into public colleges? Because when you think public education, you're thinking, elementary, the independent school districts, maybe the charter schools, but is it going to trickle down into the state colleges and community colleges? Could they be impacted by this?
Well, I think it's all impacted because the budget touches all these areas.
Okay.
And so it tends to have a domino effect. I mean, you have Texas, who is the highest rate of uninsured in the country. And we have not expanded Medicaid in this state.
No.
And so, and there was a recent hearing, I think this week, where one of the lead members of the committee, pretty much hinted that Texas didn't have the appetite to do this or take this up for session. Okay. And so when you look at the amount of uncompensated care that this state has, and the negotiation of 1115 waiver and all these things, and Texas not expanding Medicaid, and how this impacts our budget, not accepting this funding,
right?
It all trickles back down to the local budgets.
Yes.
And county commissioners having to figure out how they realign services and where they have to take money away and add money
in order to put money somewhere
to
else
keep a service going.
Right. Now, I did have a follower ask me, because they remembered the whole decision and election for having the Texas lottery and how that was sold to the public. And they felt like it was sold to the public to help out with education. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, why are we having so many struggles with education if the Texas lottery is here and people are still playing? So, how has that? Do you know anything about where those dollars have gone, and is the league looking for more creative ways to help with
Well,
some of the shortfalls?
I think some of even the reason why we're here is that we do have to improve how we are reaching out to people and having these conversations, because it definitely needs to be more inclusive. We've got to get more people involved and educated on the issues, including ourselves, and certainly open to ideas.
Right. So you mentioned the 1115 waiver. Could you explain to people what
Sure.
that means?
So the 1115 waiver, and I work in healthcare, so
Sure.
I can see you light up over that.
Yes.
But the 1115 waiver is, so we all know about the Affordable Care Act and how
Right.
the Affordable Care Act was created to decrease the uninsured,
Yes.
right?
Close that gap between
That's right.
uninsured and not qualifying for Medicare and Medicaid.
That's
Yes.
right. So the 1115 waiver for states who did not want to have the traditional Medicaid program, the 1115 waiver is kind of like an alternative.
Okay.
So it's an alternative where states have the option to say, you know what, I don't want to administer this program in its traditional sense. However, we found an innovative way to save money, to treat patients better.
Okay.
We have better outcomes. We're not seeing people be readmitted to the hospitals.
Right.
And so this helps to save money on the
Right.
back end.
Right.
And so Texas is a state that did not decide to expand Medicaid,
Right.
of course. It's very expensive. But what happens is you have two pools of money in this waiver.
Okay.
It's called DSRIP, and then the UC pools. And so
Okay.
these two pools of money kind of help to fund this waiver.
Okay.
And so the waiver is if a state can kind of prove, look, yes, we are having innovative ways that we are treating this uninsured population,
Okay.
then they're able to get this funding
Get that
from
funding.
the federal government.
Okay. Okay.
And so we were able to, luckily, and Florida had an issue where they opposed expansion as well.
Okay.
And so they didn't get nearly as much because CMS has said, look, you all can treat this population if you just expand Medicaid.
Right. Right.
And so there's kind of a discord about with the federal government
And the
with
states.
the states about this. And so Texas was very, very fortunate, and I have to give this to our congressional leadership. We had a very strong support as a partisan.
Oh, great.
I mean, everybody from Ted Cruz, Congressman Johnson, Senator Cornyn, I mean, they all signed on. I think we had everyone but one member
Okay.
of the delegation
That's great.
who signed on to this
Yes,
letter.
because Texas is not known for that.
That's right. That's right. But we were able to do that, and was able to get an extension of the waiver.
Okay.
And so this is extended until the end of next year.
Okay.
And then we've got to
Figure
start.
something.
That's right, because we will then have this issue of what do we do
Do
now?
it again. And I was going to bring up that the vouchers are also going to end shortly as well with helping to close the gap on the cost. As being a former independent dietitian and working for myself and looking at insurance rates, just for basic coverage, 80/20 with a $5,000 deductible for my daughter and I, it was $500 a month.
Yep.
And I could afford it, but when I did the math, I said, okay, I have to have $5,000 sitting in the bank,
That's right.
and I'm still shelling out $6,000 each year. Well, care visits for her and a pap smear for me. I could pay out of pocket for that, and it made more sense. But then I said, let something catastrophic
That's
happen.
right. That's
And
right.
that's what insurance is supposed to be, is for those catastrophic
That's right.
events. And unfortunately, we've just kind of seen a change with healthcare, because I remember the days of going to any doctor that you wanted to. Here in Texas, Blue Cross and Blue Shields was the big insurance company back in the 70s and 80s, and saw the blossom of the HMOs and the PPOs and the point of care service, and having to go and get a referral to go and see a specialist. And I understand, containing costs, but at the same time, we pushed a big segment of people out of the market with obtaining healthcare coverage, either by choice because they're healthy, and they're saying it's cost prohibitive for me to do this, or they just really can't afford it. And so I've had plenty of discussions with people in politics and just other healthcare workers and non-healthcare workers with, we could have easily expanded Medicaid, and we could have deferred some of the costs for certain income brackets that you help pay for some of the deferment of the cost, much like what we're doing with the voucher system with having the private insurance. And just
So, the subsidies.
the subsidies, yes.
Yes.
And just saying, yes, you don't fall under the 185% poverty line.
Right.
You are, 30% above it. So, your contribution is going to be X, Y, and Z for your health care coverage, and still maintain someone being able to go and see the doctor, especially children, because that plays a big part with education and
Absolutely.
falling behind. And now we have schools that have big populations of children living in poverty, and mom and dad are single parents are having to figure out ways to get them to the doctor, keep them well, feed them, still get them to school. And you're having to decide, do I pay rent, electric bill, buy food,
Absolutely.
so many things. And so you have a big opportunity there to do something different for the public. So are those areas that the league gets involved in? And
I'll tell you this, for me, because it's something I have to follow, it
Right.
is an area that I'm hoping that we will
okay,
certainly explore and be able to educate the public on, and get folks kind of corralled about it, because the Texas Association of Business, typically known to have very conservative principles.
okay,
You've had the chamber, very different groups weigh in on this and say Texas needs to do this.
right,
And
right,
so I do think it is an issue where we can coalesce around and find bipartisan support on it,
Right.
where you have both sides come
To
to
the
agreement
table.
and say, we've got to do something about this. You look at conservative states, Indiana, Arkansas, Ohio. These are all states who have some sort of expansion. And Alabama had considered it and got to a certain point here recently, until they had some political issues going on that kind of derailed it. But Alabama was almost there where they were, Georgia is the same way. We've got states who are now getting to the point where they're saying, we are strapped. We
Right.
have got to figure something out.
right,
And now reconsidering the whole expansion question.
okay,
Because it's just not, it doesn't make economic sense. It's not economically prudent for a state to pass up
an opportunity to
these
keep
this
the
funding.
the population healthy, because those are your potential workers.
Absolutely. And I think with the business community, they have taken that into consideration of, look, this is our workforce pipeline. You mentioned earlier about education and how this is affecting students. You need healthy workers, you need healthy children.
You need
If you have a
educated
healthy
people,
worker
right.
and you don't have, them being able to come to work because they've got to take sick children to the hospital, and then they're not uninsured, and it's
It's a domino
a
effect.
domino effect.
Right, and it's not just one easy solution either. It's going to take everybody at the table, as I said. Everybody has a stake in this. If I'm Corporation X I can't expect to make dollars if I'm moving here and the population is sick themselves,
Sure.
undereducated, or just have a lot of social problems, or I'm looking and saying, I don't know if I want to move my company there.
That's right.
And that's a potential loss of revenue for the state itself.
And Dallas has done very well in that area. I think we must admit, with the amount of commerce, the companies that are moving here to
Yes.
North Texas.
Yes.
I mean, we've done really well in that area, but I think for us to continue
Yes.
in that area, we've got to do some long-term strategic planning and, including these big questions of, does the state decide to participate in a program like this and
Right.
accept this funding?
Right.
You know, Texas, we really pride ourselves on being independent and that
Yes, we do.
spirit of independence.
Yes.
But I do think there's sometimes, we definitely need to take a step back and, look to see how we can.
Do some things differently and say maybe this is not a fight that we have to fight.
Absolutely. Good point.
Yes, I'm always telling myself that maybe this is not the fight that we need to get out there and be gung-ho about, because be gung-ho about a lot of things. And, age has just, mellowed me out and said, yeah, no, I'm going to leave that to the youngins and let them do that. So does the league have any other events coming up besides the one on October the 8th?
Sure. So we have an annual event, the Susan B. Anthony Awards.
Okay.
That's in the winter.
Okay.
And you can go to lwvdallas.org.
Okay.
And our phone number is 214-688-4125. And we certainly love to have people participate. We take the time at that event to recognize a leader and someone who has been engaged on these issues and shown leadership.
Great.
And so we've had some women here in the past, here locally, that we felt proud of. Regina Montoya being one
Great.
that we recognize, and
Yes.
so certainly love to have you all come out and support.
So this is open to the public?
It is.
Okay, great.
It is.
And so how do you guys determine the pool that you're going to select from?
So we have a nominating process.
Okay.
And, the membership is able to nominate folks.
Okay.
And we have a deadline for that. And we will have a process where we go through and sort through that and vote on them.
And kind of look at their resume and their accomplishments and what
Absolutely.
they've done. Wow.
Absolutely.
So tell me, what is it like to be a member with the League of Women's Voters?
I'll tell you, I am a new
New
board member and a new member.
Okay.
And it is very exciting. I'll tell you, I'm involved with one other board here locally. And with the league, I worked in government, and so it definitely allows me to be able to, have ties to, the elements of, civics and
Yes,
government and everything.
yes.
And so I do like that. I love being able to, explore these issues. Other women who have all these different backgrounds. We meet every month.
Okay.
We have our unit meetings, and it's not one of the kind of boards where you just kind of meet and you go away. I mean, you are very active and engaged in the process.
Okay, great.
And so it keeps us very busy.
Really?
It does, yeah.
Wow, that is so good to hear that there is a group of women coming together and saying this is what's important for everyone involved in the community at large. Because, you can have so many organizations, they do things for the public, but behind closed doors is something very different. And it just sounds like the league is just so passionate about changing what's out there and bringing issues to the public to say, hey guys, this is what's going on.
It is, and I'll tell you, just from the short period of time I've been around the very seasoned veteran members who've been on the board and been in the league. These are women who, of course, are in touch and tapped into what's going on here locally, but also around the state with the other state leagues and nationally we have members who've been, who've had leadership on the national board.
Okay.
And, you know, it just helps to enhance the whole process because you're getting the big picture and it trickled down to locally, you know, how this impacts you.
Yes, because you've mentioned so much going on with the state
Yes.
and how that plays a role in what's going to happen here locally. And I did a candidate forum during the runoff back in March, and every door my son and I knocked on to hand a flyer. We said, you know, the closer the desk is to your front door, the more impactful. And people, I don't know if they really understand when they're choosing someone locally, that's your representative that's going to Austin, that's your representative that's going to DC, and they're representing you, and you need to make sure that you're putting someone at the table who's going to fight for you.
That's right.
And have, as we say, and all the teenagers say, have your back and your best interest at heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's great to see that, you know, the league has such a pulse on what's going on in Austin and coming back and saying, well, this is how it's going to impact us, and what do we want to do about it.
Absolutely.
That is.
It is, and you know, when I got up this morning, I try to, you know, pay attention to obviously, you know, some of the news shows, and what's going on, and it's very refreshing to see when I got here this morning and you see all the folks lined up to come into the library.
Yes.
You know, I thought my grandmother used to take us to the library and she'd walk us to check out books, and it was really refreshing to see because civic engagement is not just the big stuff.
No.
I mean, it's the little things.
Yes.
Of making sure, even if it is just taking a child to read a book on government or on Cesar Chavez,
Yes.
it's those small things that help to build that foundation for when they become adults in the workplace and you want them to be responsible citizens, canvassing and telling folks about an issue or an election.
Yes. And this library is great with having many programs here that for the children, with making sure that they read during the summer as well as during the school year. They have programs for adults. So every Saturday there is a line of people.
I could see that.
Yes. And so when you talk about local things, you know, it's this library that's going to have a big voice and say, hey, we have all these programs going on. You need to increase our funding versus saying that you're going to decrease our funding or at least keep our funding the same so we can maintain our services. Whereas another library may not be doing as much. And it's kind of like, well, what can the population that's there in that area do to make sure that they're not losing resources?
Right.
And it's just making sure that people understand that, you know, the city council is having budget hall meetings. There's a 2017 bond election coming up in May, and the city is already starting to advertise that information and make it available so the public can see what's going on, because your vote is being asked for. And that's one thing that I really love about your voter's guide is that you are laying everything out from your polling places, how everything should be conducted on the day of the election. So the ballot information, just being crystal clear about the process and not saying it's party driven. It's just, this is the election process.
And you make the decision, but I think, you have to be commended in people like you, because part of it is you just have to have some sort of outlet of getting this information out to people.
Yes.
And so, so thank you for that.
Oh,
because
my pleasure. Yes.
You know, there are lots of, you know, tools nationally you see, but I think locally it's not as much out there. And so to be able to have some sort of outlet like this where, you know, it's here at a local library, this is a facility obviously people are really using.
Yes.
And, you know, it makes a big difference to be able to get this information out to
It
people.
does. So I do want to remind everyone that October 11th is the deadline for registering to vote for the November 8th primary. So you can definitely go to any post office. They do have applications there. All you have to do is just submit it in the mail, and it takes 30 days for your information to be processed. Or if you should go to a voter registration event, they do have deputies, registrars there. I'm one of them.
Yeah,
Where wasn't that fun?
It was.
And your 30-day processing window starts as soon as your application is taken with the deputy. So we collect those green cards versus the white one, and we actually take those to the election office to get your information processed faster. So it's very important to have everyone get registered to vote so your voice can be heard at the ballot box. Because I know there's lots of voter apathy there, and definitely with the presidential election, we do have a greater turnout. But I just wanted, stress the league being so involved just in Dallas, period, and why it's just so important to keep your finger on the pulse about what is happening in the city.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, so I do want to appreciate you and thank you so much for coming out and speaking about the league. We're going to take a little bit of a break here as we wait for our next guest. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.